Welcome into Win the Line, presented by the 33rd team. My name is Tanner Kern, joined alongside former CFL defensive lineman and Idaho Vandal, as you see the shirt on, Maxx Forde. Max, it's a great day. Week 11 is here. We're over that halfway point. We have a huge Thursday night football game between the Ravens and the Bengals. Bengals in a must-win spot here. Got some notable injuries up front. Ravens offensive tackle Ronnie Stanley's not going to play with a knee injury, and then Bengals defensive end Sam Hubbard's not going to play with an ankle injury. So first off, I want you to tell me how this matchup is going to play out up front, and then give me a winner.
Yeah, so I think when Baltimore has the ball, I think they've got a clear advantage there, even without Ronnie Stanley. Like, he's been out at times throughout the last few years, unfortunately, but that's given him a chance to build up that depth, quality depth. Pat McCarty's played a lot for this team, and he's done well. And this is an offensive line that they like to run through you. They're kind of like that bully mentality, that power mentality, where we're just going to come right at you and try to put you in a phone booth and see if you can handle that. So with the Bengals, they do have some good players, notably Trey Hendrickson is the guy that kind of really makes that defensive line go. But I think, when the Ravens have the ball, the advantage to the Ravens up front. On the flip side, probably also advantage Ravens because that defensive line right now is also playing really well. I know they've got pass rush guru Chuck Smith in there as their D-line coach now, and they've been finishing a lot of sacks. They've probably been a little bit more disproportionate to the amount of pressures they're getting to sacks. They're getting a lot of sacks when they are generating pressure, which is a good thing. But I just think that both sides of the trenches probably favor the Ravens this Thursday night game.
Oh, I totally agree. The Ravens are favored on both sides of the trenches here. I think the Bengals are going to struggle to protect Joe Burrow, but that's nothing new. We've seen that. Burrow's a master at evading pressure because he's had to do it so much in his career. I look at this game as a whole. I think the Ravens have the advantage. Obviously, they're 3.5-point favorite. Lines jumped up to 4 now, as I'm seeing. But when I look at this team here, I think with the Bengals, it's desperation, right? We're going to see everything that they have because it's the game that they have to win. Ravens definitely in that same position. They need to win to keep pace and keep that lead in the AFC North with Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Now, losing Deshaun, I don't know, but those two teams right behind them. But for the Bengals, this is a game that if they lose, they're right in that same position with the Bills on the outside looking into that playoff hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a tough division there. The AFC North, it feels like it is very often, but I think it was coming into last weekend, all 4 teams were in playoff position. I have to double check to see if that's still true, but I mean, that's just insane. Yeah, 4 teams, all 4 teams from your division right there in position. So very tough division and crucial game for Cincinnati, like you said.
Yeah, we've talked about the Steelers a lot on here. How they're playing is blowing my mind because they have one of the worst point differentials, but they're winning football games. They give up yards to the air, they give up yards on the ground, but they still find a way to win, which is wild. We're not talking about the Steelers that unfortunately moved to some new teams. But we have some good mismatches too here as well. The LA Chargers defense going against the Green Bay Packers offense. The Chargers secondary has not been good. We saw this once again against the Detroit Lions, and that was our biggest fear last week going into that game. How are the Chargers going to hold up in the secondary? They didn't do that well. But they are 12th in the NFL against the run, giving up 102 yards per game. So how do you see Green Bay attacking this Chargers defense, knowing that they're bad against the pass, but you got a quarterback in Jordan Love that hasn't been super efficient with the football either?
Well, you don't want to be sending Jordan Love back to pass for those long developing plays right now because the way that you got Khalil Mack playing, the way you got Joey Bosa playing, even Tuli Pelotu playing back there, their third edge, he's been getting into the mix a lot. They're really heating up on that defensive line. You got Morgan Fox there as well, has been playing really well. And so I think, that secondary is something you want to take advantage of. You probably want to hit them with some quick hitters. And then if you can, maybe get those inside runs going where you can try to get away from those edge defenders. Because right now, those guys, I think the last, 3 or 4 games, they've really been heating up. Started a little bit slow, but they're a scary group. And you don't want to send that in. I know Jordan Love's now half a season in. I don't know if you can call him inexperienced, but you don't want to send a younger quarterback back there patting the ball and waiting for them to hit home.
Definitely. This is a game for the Packers where I think they're going to put this one on their interior offensive line, run the football behind A.J. Dillon, try to get something going there, and then work for those play action shots over the top along with the quick game, as you talked about. So what type of game does Jordan Love have here? Is he in that 200 passing yard range? Does he approach 300, knowing that a lot of quarterbacks have been able to do that against the Chargers? What do you think?
I kind of like it in that 200 range. Just I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in the Packers passing game right now. I also don't have a lot of faith in the Chargers secondary, like we've talked about. But it's just if he's got to throw those quick hitters because of that pressure, I just don't know. I think the Chargers can rally to the ball and limit those gains. And I think it's more in that 200 range. But yeah, definitely an appetizing matchup with that secondary.
Yeah, the biggest reason I feel this is a mismatch is just because when we look at the Chargers, I think it's going to be attrition warfare. They're going to wear this Packers team down, might be with their offense, even scoring points and forcing the Packers into situations that they don't want to be in. And that's when you can let the guys go like Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and get to the quarterback here. Moving into our next mismatch, the Detroit Lions defense coming off a huge win over the LA Chargers. Defense wasn't very good in that one. But still, I like a big bounce back here against the Chicago Bears offense. Thing to note that Justin Fields will be playing in this football game. And the Chicago offensive line's been much better recently. Only giving up 3 sacks per game. It's not terrible. It's not great by any means, but in their past few games, they've been under 2. So something to note there. You have Justin Fields. You have a weapon in him. How does this Detroit defense contain Justin Fields?
I mean, I know we've talked about it at length with those mobile quarterbacks, but you got to keep that pass rush lane integrity there. Just got to make sure that you don't really give them those escape lanes. Maybe keep a spy on them, which of course kind of limits what you can do in pass coverage. So he's a guy that can definitely break the game with his legs. We saw it the second half of the season last year. We've seen it at times a little bit this year. He seems a little bit more hesitant to do that. But I think that this is a game where you got to make sure that you're not taking that high rush over the edge where maybe you're exposing a little gap through that B gap where he can kind of slip out and up to the sideline. So, just make sure you keep guys in front of them. Don't rush too high and wide because you're not going to get that kind of Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis rush where they used to send one of those ends inside and chase him down from the backside. You're not going to chase this guy down from the backside like that.
Yeah, definitely. Now, running quarterback can be an offensive lineman's best friend. It also can be terrible because they might take off in a position where they don't need to take off, and that leads to extra sacks if they're not able to evade the pressure. So as a defensive lineman, go back to your playing days, when you knew you were facing a running quarterback, how did you stay in that rush lane? Because sometimes the gate opens and you want to get out of your lane and just get to that quarterback. But how did you stay disciplined in those moments?
I think the biggest thing that helps you stay disciplined is the experience of not being disciplined before that. When you think, I could get this guy, and then you get got, he gets that edge, and you go to the sideline, your coach is yelling at you, you go into film, your head's down, you don't want to see it again. And you just, when you have those experiences, you're like, all right, like maybe I've got to rush a little bit differently against guys like this. Because just that experience is a great teacher, not just in football, but in life, of course. But when you have those bad experiences like that, you don't want to experience it again. So I think, for me, it was just like you have that confidence that you can go get every guy, but there's some guys you just got to treat differently.
Oh, yeah, and Justin Fields is one of those guys. I think discipline is huge in these spots, and just knowing that defensive lineman, this doesn't go on the stat sheet, obviously, and same for an offensive lineman, right? But just doing your job, clogging up your gap, pushing a guard back into the quarterback, forcing him to, roll right or roll to his left, a situation that he's not comfortable with, and then that leads to a sack. But those interior guys don't always get the credit for forcing the quarterback out of the pocket. So just staying in your lane is huge. Totally agree with that there. And going out to discipline, I'm just having flashbacks of watching film, knowing because as a player, when you're on a Saturday and, you make a mistake, and like something that runs through your head, even though you're getting ripped on the sidelines, like shit, how's that going to look on film? That's not going to look good. It's not going to look good. So there's definitely a lot of those moments, I'm sure, when Justin Fields is playing quarterback and running quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, all those guys in general. Moving into some budget plays for DFS, under $3,000 here. Tennessee Titans defense just got lit up by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. And you know what? I want to put some respect on Baker's name too. Baker's playing a lot better than people think. Would just, quick reaction. What have you seen from Baker so far this year?
He's being decisive, getting the ball out, and he's got some weapons out there. I mean, Tom Brady went down to Tampa because they had those weapons, and it's not quite the same roster. He's lost some help on the offensive line. The offensive line's played very well with different personnel there. And he's just – I mean, he's doing everything that you thought he could when he came into the league initially. I know there was a period of a couple years there right before this where people started to question maybe whether he could do it. But yeah, he's showing that he can be that quarterback. Maybe not the top tier of quarterbacks, but he can be a very good quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, and he's doing it with little running game. Like there's not a lot going from Rachaad White here. Rachaad White works for every yard that he gets, but there's not a lot of big holes there for him. So Baker's had to make throws in spots where the defense knows that they have to pass consistently. So just a shout out to Baker Mayfield. I am a little bit of a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, so I will give that away. But the Tennessee Titans defense against the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, Titans priced at $2,900 here. Tennessee's been an average unit across the board, average in the secondary, average up front. Do have some guys like Jeffrey Simmons, 22 solo tackles, 4.5 sacks, been very good. I also really like Taylor Tart down in the middle there. I think these guys are going to give Jacksonville a little bit of a headache, but the Jaguars are in a spot where they need to respond. So how do you factor that into this matchup, knowing that Jacksonville just got blown off the field by San Francisco last week?
Well, yeah, I think that going into weeks like that, you always have that kind of urgency. But I also think that Tennessee's got a little bit of urgency as well. They got kind of walked off the field as well. So you got two teams. This is a division game as well. You want to set the tone. You've got guys that know each other a little bit. You named a few guys like Jeffrey Simmons is just one of the best defensive interior players in the game right now. And yeah, they might not have that up and down the line. I do like the Nico Autry as well there on the inside. But yeah, I think they've been able to limit the run at times this year. I know they had a hot start doing that up front. It's kind of petered out a little bit. And with Jacksonville coming in, they haven't been very efficient on the ground either. So I think that's kind of a little bit of a marriage there where Tennessee can slow them down on the ground and then kind of dare Trevor Lawrence to be who he wants to be. We haven't seen him really be that quarterback that we expected coming into the league as a kind of generational talent. So if he's going to do that, they're going to try to dare him to do that, and we'll see if he can come through. But I think that's their path to win this game is just stopping them on the ground and then kind of daring them to make those plays through the air.
Yeah, just going off what you said there, I think we're going to see a lot of run blitzes on, first and second down, put the Jaguars in obvious passing situations, show blitz and back off, try to confuse this offensive line here, because that's the way to do it against Jacksonville in the sense of Trevor Lawrence hasn't been great. If you can get pressure with four guys up front, you're in great shape. Just because he hasn't been the most efficient quarterback. And we saw that 4 turnovers last week for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do have the fear that they come out with their heads on fire and try to go out and just absolutely dominate this game. But when you look at the matchup, it's very favorable for Tennessee. One thing to note, though, Will Levis, rookie quarterback, hasn't really turned the ball over, but he hasn't been super efficient, too. So sticking his defense in situations to be successful, flipping the field when he needs to and all that. So interesting matchup there. I like this matchup. This next matchup that Maxx came up with, very, very could be profitable in DFS. New York Jets defense versus the Buffalo Bills offense. I think the thing about Buffalo, every week we think get right spot. Thursday night football or prime time, get right spot. Monday night football, prime time, get right spot against the inferior opponent. Yeah. They don't do it. They don't get right. This should be a get right spot against New York Jets, even though the Jets have a great defense. You're going against Zach Wilson though, but I can't sit here and say Buffalo is going to bounce back. So from a team perspective, how do you think they respond against this Jets defense?
Well, it'll be interesting because they just fired their offense coordinator, Ken Dorsey. I know we talked about Las Vegas firing their coach a couple weeks back, and that for them has been that kind of galvanizing impetus there where Las Vegas has been playing very well, obviously against a couple of teams, including the Jets here, that maybe don't have that full team that you want to have, but Las Vegas has done well with that. We'll see how the Bills offense reacts, but I just have, like you said, they haven't reacted yet. I'm not sure that they have that in them. And the Jets defense has been very good. They've had Zach Wilson there, has put him in some tough spots. He's done well in some spots as well. He hasn't been as bad as he was last year, but he's still probably one of the lower tier starting quarterbacks, and he's put him in some tough spots, and they've responded. They've answered the call every week, and they're the reason that they're still kind of in this thing, winning games. And that defense is a really tough one to go against. And it might be a get right spot for the team, but I think if they're going to do it, they're going to do it because Buffalo's defense just dominated the Jets offense. I don't see them moving the ball freely against this Jets defense.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the reason I go back to like the Chargers Jets game where the Jets defense was exceptional. They played really well. The scoreboard, if you look at it, doesn't resemble that, but they still played a very good game. So I think we're going to see that in this one here. Josh Allen leads the league in interceptions. I do want to give a little shout out, though, to the offensive line for the Bills. They've been very good protecting him this season, only giving up 1.3 sacks per game. Josh Allen has made mistakes with the football. He doesn't look right out there, and that's a reason to lean towards the Jets here for a $2,600 price. Jermaine Johnson, 5 sacks, 19 solo tackles off the edge, been great. And then Quentin Jefferson as well, 4.5 sacks from the interior. I think if these guys can get pressure on Josh Allen, that's when he falls apart. So how do you see this front seven playing for the Jets in this one?
Yeah, so you mentioned those two guys. You also got Quinnen Williams in there, who commands a lot of attention from any offensive line he plays against. And I think they can send those front four. And I think they can get – I know you talked about how good Buffalo's offensive line's been as far as avoiding those sacks, but I do think they can get some pressure with that front four and allow – well, it also helps to have the secondary that the Jets have because you can blitz without risking the big plays as much as maybe some other teams because they have some very good cornerbacks on that team. So you can come at Josh Allen in a lot of different ways to try to generate that pressure. He's a guy that likes to have the ball in his hands when it matters, which you probably say about a lot of the top quarterbacks, but especially the ones that can run and throw the ball like he can. They really like to put the ball in his hands, and I think the Jets have the group that can go and bother him when he has the ball in his hands. So I think it should be a fun matchup to watch. That Jets defense, man, just can't say enough good things about them. When you're put in those tough situations and you keep doing it over and over again, it's a really tough thing to do. You're losing time of possession often, those kinds of things that starts to wear on you late in games a lot of times. But this team is stood up to the test.
Yeah, them being on the field so much this year has really toughened them up too. And there's a lot of opportunities for turnovers in this game. Not only Josh Allen, but James Cook can't seem to hold on to the football either. So I'm lucky he went over his rushing prop. I had that the other night. I thought he wasn't going to return to the game, and he might not play this week after his fumble Ruski kind of night last week. But anyways, Max, final question here for you. Look at the Titans. You look at the Jets. Which DFS matchup would you rather have this week in your lineup?
Yeah, I think this weekend I'll go with the Jets. It's always scary to go against a top-tier quarterback because Josh Allen he has the ability. We've seen it. He's just ripped defenses apart before. But I just think right now that team looks a little bit out of sorts, and that Jets defense, like we said, is battle-tested. They've been put through a lot of bad situations, and they've come up big for that team. So I think I'll roll the Jets here.
Definitely. I would go with the Jets as well. I think the upside is better for $2,600. Can use that money elsewhere. And I honestly trust this Jets defense. If Zach Wilson just protects the football and puts them in decent spots, I think they can have a very good day against Buffalo because the Bills have not proved to us that they can respond yet. So that was Win the Line for Week 11. We are rolling through the season, Max. We got a big matchup Thursday night, some big matchups on Sunday, and we will be off next week for Thanksgiving. There'll be a couple shows on the 33rd team, so make sure you check that out and check all the content out on the website, and then we'll be back. So Week 13 will be our next show on Wednesday of that week. So make sure you check that out, guys. Appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time for another episode.